Hey everybody, Adam here for True North Wilds with finally another slam video. This month I decided to do the RLM Elite Pike specific box from Simple Fishing. Simplefishing.ca if you want to check them out yourself. You can also see the unboxing for this specific box. I'll put a direct link to that at the end of this video. You can go check that out. I love fishing for pike. They get big, they're aggressive, they take off like a torpedo when you hook them. They put up a great fight, and you can cook them and they taste delicious. They're the whole package. They're everything that you want in a sport fish in Canada. I had a perfect opportunity to go fishing for pike in the last couple weeks. I went with my friend Colin up the Winnipegow River canoe route into the Woodland Caribou Park. I went with my other friends, Dustin and Les, up the Bird River canoe route into McGregor Lake and Bird Lake. And so I had ample opportunity to throw these lures out, and I had a lot of success. So first up, let's look at the Flirty Frog from Bumble Lures. I really like this lure. It's fairly unique. I've fished one similar to this, but never anything quite like this. It's a weedless design, even though it has a big exposed hook. The way that it floats on the water with that hook always pointing up away from the vegetation, it did pretty good job of not snagging into the weeds. I threw it into a lot of pretty thick stuff. I had strike after strike after strike on this lure. I found a nice weedy bay, threw it into the vegetation. I had pike coming up from underneath, going after it non-stop. This was an excellent lure for surface fishing for pike. One problem I did have, and I don't know if it has anything to do with the lure or I just got, maybe not so smart pike, but they kept coming up 6 inches to the left, 6 inches to the right, 6 inches behind it, even when the lure wasn't moving on the water. I had perfectly calm water. I had it sitting there. I wasn't reeling in. And they would come up, and it took multiple attempts before they would actually finally grab it. They were definitely going after this nonstop. Even if they had trouble zeroing in on it, they were certainly interested, they were certainly striking at it, and it wasn't very long for me to catch a fish on this. The next one that I tried was the Fusion Extreme Lucky Bug. This is a pretty cool lure. It's small for a pike. It's not going to catch you any big trophies, but for a good general sized pike, this was a pretty good lure to use. It has a really nice sinking motion in the water. It sinks, and then wherever you decide to start reeling it in from, it has a really nice wiggle in the water. It doesn't surface too fast unless you're really cranking on the rod. You can vary your speed pretty easily with this and put it at a number of different depths with that sinking action and the shape of that bill. It really worked really good, had a good wobble, and didn't take me too long to get strikes on this and catch a fish. From Fanatic Baits, I have the Dagger Active soft plastic. It's a good color. It has a really nice tail swimming action in the water. I threw a jig head on it, nice pink jig head, and just bobbed it up and down like a leech or a worm might swim through the water. With that really good action of the tail and then that bobbing action up and down, I had a lot of strikes on this. I had a lot of interest in it pretty quickly. Didn't take me too long to catch a fish on this. Because I used a jig head, I actually had a lot of strikes that would grab the tail or the body, just because my hook was set pretty far up the actual plastic. Not a fault of the plastic, that's just because I didn't really have any longer shanked jig heads or anything else that was a little bit more appropriate for it. Freedom Lures double bladed spinner. This was a really interesting lure to use, mainly because I don't use a lot of spinners. This has a really nice flash in the water because it's got these two blades and they're nice and shiny. It's got the shiny beads on it as well. It's got more of a natural color jig head on it. It's big, it's flashy, it makes a lot of disturbance in the water. I actually caught a pike on this with my very first cast of it, which was a bit of a relief for me because I'm really not too familiar with spinners and I wasn't sure how well I would do with this. First cast, got a pike, no problem. A classic Canadian pike lure. A spoon, simple spoon with some flash, with some red on it. This is the Magic Double XL spoon. Nice shape to it. Really, really nice wobble in the water. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Big action in the water. Back and forth, back and forth. Just that fantastic wobble that you want in a spoon. Lots of flash with that gold. It took me a few casts to hone in on the bigger boys, because I had a few strikes on this from pike that were too small to really get hooked on it. But I went around the corner, I threw this out into some deeper water, and I had a nice big pike on this pretty quickly. I spent very little time fishing with this lure because I had fish on it very, very quickly. Definitely, you can't go wrong with a spoon. When it comes to pike fishing, any sort of spoon is going to do you good, but you get that classic red and gold, big, nice thin, big wobble. I mean, what's not to love? So the last lure that I fished and the last one that I had success with, the one that took me the most time and was by far the most challenging, the Lunker Hunt, Tennessee shad, color and shape, paddle tail, plastic swim bait. It came with a package of hooks as well, these wide gap offset hooks. So that's what I was using for the most part to try and get some bites. This was a frustrating lure to use, and not for lack of interest from the fish. This lure, for some reason, brought out the most bizarre pike behavior that I have ever seen. I don't know if it was the color, the sparkles, the smell, the shape, I have no idea. But what would happen every single time I threw this lure out into the water is pike would come up and they'd come right up to it and they would nose it. They would actually nose it, headbutt it a little bit, push it off to the side, swim away, circle around it, and then come up and do the same thing. Didn't matter how I twitched it, how I let it sink. And trust me, this has some nice action in the water. This thing sinks on its side and it kind of twists over upside down in the water. If you retrieve it really slowly, it kind of does the old side rolling over, dead fish imitation really, really well. Or you can pull a little faster and you get that paddle tail action. It's a very versatile plastic. It had great action. It looked like a dying fish, a dying bait fish, really, really well. And it got a lot of interest. Every time this was in the water, there was fish around it. I even tried switching out the hook and putting on this specialized pike hook rather than the wide gap offset that came with it. I figured, it's still within the spirit of the slam. This is the hook that actually finally landed me a fish. However, it wasn't a pike. I still had all the hits with the pike, just headbutting this. They just would not take it. I finally threw this in once we got to a different lake, and I had a smallmouth bass come up and just inhale this. And of course I had this hook in, so I hooked him easy. Brought him in. It was a nice smallmouth bass. Can't complain. I still caught a fish for the slam, but I didn't succeed at catching a pike on this. No matter which lake I was in, no matter which river I was in, I threw this out and I had pike circling it and I just could not get them to bite it. No idea why, but I'm at a loss. I'm at a complete loss because everything about this lure, otherwise, it looks great and it works for other fish just fine. So thanks for watching. I really enjoyed doing that slam. I love pike fishing. I really liked my pike box from Simple Fishing. You can check them out, simplefishing.ca, see if it's something you'd be interested in. Don't forget to hit those buttons down there, like and subscribe. It really helps me out a lot. You can follow us on Facebook if you're not already, facebook.com/TrueNorthWilds, on Instagram @TrueNorthWilds, and if you like to read, I like to write about my outdoor adventures, TrueNorthWilds.com for that. Until next time, I will see you outside.